Our planet's oceans guard secrets that could shatter our understanding of human history. Scattered across the seafloor lie the remains of ancient cities, structures so old they predate the pyramids by thousands of years. By the end of this exploration, you will see the entire timeline of civilization in a startling new light. We will investigate a legendary metropolis described by Plato and a mysterious pyramid discovered off the coast of Japan. What does the existence of these places say about the true age of human society? Something about a sunken city calls to a deep part of our psyche. It is more than just history, it is the echo of a myth. For generations, storytellers have spoken of great civilizations that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night. These were not just tales, they were warnings and mysteries passed down through time. Today, when we find the real thing, it feels like we are uncovering a truth that was always waiting for us. The ocean is the perfect keeper of these secrets. Its cold, dark waters protect stone from erosion and shield these sites from modern interference, creating time capsules of incredible integrity. This transforms an archaeological site into a kind of shrine, a place where the past feels unnervingly close. Our drive to find them, to send robots and divers into the abyss, is a modern version of an ancient quest. We are not just looking for old stones, we are searching for a piece of our own story that went missing, a chapter that could explain how we got here. And no lost chapter is more famous than the story of a glittering metropolis called Atlantis. The story of Atlantis was first set down in ink by the philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago. He did not present it as a simple myth, but as a history passed down through generations. In his dialogues, The Timaeus and Critias, he describes a formidable island nation, an empire of unparalleled wealth and sophistication that existed 9,000 years before his own time. This was a society of great engineers and navigators, with a capital city of concentric rings of water and land, adorned with magnificent temples and bustling harbors. Yet its people grew arrogant, and their ambition outstripped their virtue. According to Plato, this once great civilization was punished by the gods, consumed by earthquakes and floods before vanishing beneath the sea in one terrible day and night. This vivid account forces a difficult question upon us. Was Plato recording a genuine, albeit distant, historical event, a cataclysm so profound its memory survived for millennia? Or was Atlantis always intended as a powerful philosophical fable, a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and the fall of ideal states? The very ambiguity is what gives the legend its enduring power. For centuries, this single story has acted like a magnetic force, pulling explorers and thinkers to search for a tangible place that could anchor the tale in reality. It is the original seed from which all modern searches for sunken cities have grown, a blueprint for a lost world that challenges us to separate memory from myth. And this search leads us from the pages of an ancient text to the sun-drenched waters of the Mediterranean, where a discovery emerged that seemed to echo Plato's description with startling clarity. While the legend of Atlantis has captivated minds for centuries, a real sunken city was waiting just off the coast of Greece. Pavlopetri is not a story from a philosopher, but a physical place you could swim through today. It is the oldest known submerged city in the world, its foundations laid over 5,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. Here, the ocean floor is not a barren landscape but a ghostly map of a lost metropolis. You can follow the lines of its intact streets, pass through the doorways of its buildings, and stand in the center of its courtyards. This is not a few scattered stones, it is an entire urban plan preserved in time. The sea, which destroyed so many other cities, became Pavlopetri's greatest protector. By submerging it, the water sealed the city away from looters and shielded it from being built over by later civilizations. This gave archaeologists a rare gift, a perfectly frozen moment from an ancient world. We can see how people organized their town, where they conducted trade, and even where they laid their loved ones to rest in tombs that still dot the site. This level of preservation offers a clarity that is often impossible to find in ruined cities on land, which are frequently layered and rebuilt over centuries. Pavlopetri acts as a clear window into Bronze Age daily life, revealing a sophisticated society connected to vast maritime trade networks. Its existence proves that the sea can hold our history in perfect suspension, keeping secrets safe for millennia. This tangible evidence from the Mediterranean makes the search for other sunken worlds feel less like fantasy and more like a matter of time. And that search leads us across the globe to a structure whose geometric perfection defies any simple explanation. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, the ocean floor reveals a mystery carved in stone. Looming from the depths is a colossal structure that looks like a terraced pyramid, a monument of such scale and symmetry that it challenges everything we think we know about the ancient world. Discovered by a diver in the 1980s, the Yonaguni Monument is a series of massive sandstone blocks forming what seem to be perfect terraces, sharp right angles, and even staircases ascending into the abyss. The central question is as profound as the structure itself. Is this a masterpiece of natural geology, or is it a human creation from a time before history was written? Those who argue for its artificial origin point to features that seem meticulously designed. There are long, straight channels that run parallel to each other, corners that meet at perfect 90 degrees, and what some interpret as carved reliefs resembling animals. If these features were found on dry land, the debate would likely be settled in favor of human hands. But here, submerged since the end of the last ice age when sea levels were dramatically lower, the monument exists in a hazy frontier between a natural wonder and an archaeological site. The implications of it being human-made are staggering. It would suggest a sophisticated society capable of large-scale stone construction existed in Japan over 10,000 years ago, a time when our ancestors were supposedly simple hunter-gatherers. This would not just add a new chapter to history, it would require us to rewrite the entire book of Asian prehistory, pushing back the dawn of monumental architecture by thousands of years. Yet skeptics offer a powerful counter-argument, pointing to the region's active seismic activity. They suggest the immense forces of earthquakes could have fractured the sandstone along its natural bedding planes, creating the appearance of carved blocks and platforms through entirely natural means. This controversy forces us to look more carefully at the world beneath the waves, where the line between a random act of nature and a deliberate act of civilization becomes beautifully, frustratingly blurred. The Yonaguni Monument stands as a silent sentinel, guarding its origin story and reminding us that some of humanity's greatest works may still be hidden, waiting for the sea to reveal them. And as we will see, this is not the only place where the ocean teases us with such ambiguous treasures. Far to the west of Yonaguni, in the sun-drenched shallows of the Bahamas, the sea presents another puzzle. The Bimini Road is a stark, linear formation of massive limestone blocks, each one appearing to be carefully placed in a straight line that stretches for nearly half a mile across the white sand seabed. Seen from above, it looks unnervingly like a man-made causeway, a sunken highway leading to a destination lost to time. It is easy to understand why its discovery ignited a firestorm of speculation, with many proclaiming it a definitive piece of Atlantis, a remnant of a paved road from a sunken empire. The visual argument is incredibly compelling, a path of seemingly perfect rectangular blocks resting silently in the clear, blue water. Yet, does our eyes seeing a pattern mean that a pattern was intentionally created? This is where the rigorous process of science enters the conversation, challenging a captivating story with hard evidence. Geologists who have studied the site point to a very common natural process. They identify the stone as beak rock, a type of sandstone that forms along coastlines from sand and shell fragments cemented together by natural carbonate minerals. Over thousands of years, as sea levels have fluctuated, this cemented rock can fracture along its horizontal bedding planes. The result is a formation that naturally breaks into remarkably straight, block-like segments that can appear deliberately laid. Core samples drilled from the blocks show a consistent composition and structure, lacking the tool marks or varied quarry sources one would expect from a human construction project. So, is the Bimini Road a profound archaeological treasure, or simply a magnificent geological accident? The debate itself is a powerful lesson. It teaches us the delicate balance in underwater exploration between our powerful desire to find lost worlds and the disciplined need for verifiable proof. We are drawn to the romantic idea of a sunken pathway, but science asks us to listen to the story the stone itself is telling. This essential discipline of weighing wonder against analysis now guides us to one of the most complex and sprawling underwater discoveries ever made, a site that blurs the lines between myth and history on an unimaginable scale. The transition from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean reveals a discovery that moves beyond geological debate and into the heart of living faith. Off the western coast of India, the modern town of Dwarka sits beside waters that hide a legendary past. For thousands of years, Hindu sacred texts have sung of a magnificent city, a celestial capital built by the deity Lord Krishna. These ancient scriptures describe a metropolis of unparalleled splendor, with palaces of gold and silver, vast gateways, and bustling ports filled with ships. The epic Mahabharata recounts that upon Krishna's departure from the world, his glorious city was swallowed by the ocean, vanishing from sight but never from memory. For centuries, this was understood as pure mythology, a powerful story with no physical anchor. Then, marine archaeologists began to explore the seabed. What they found was not a vague formation, but undeniable evidence of a lost urban center. They mapped the outlines of massive stone walls and fortifications sprawling across the seafloor. They recovered stone anchors, the kind used to moor large trading vessels, and countless pieces of pottery, some potentially dating back an astonishing 9,000 years. The correlation is what sends a shiver down the spine. The layout of the submerged structures aligns remarkably well with the descriptions preserved in the ancient poems. This is not about proving a specific religious narrative, but about recognizing a profound human process, how the memory of a real, catastrophic event can be encoded within stories and passed down through hundreds of generations. The discovery at Dwarka suggests that a significant coastal settlement, perhaps a powerful and sophisticated kingdom, did indeed succumb to the rising seas at the end of the last ice age. Its dramatic loss left such a deep scar on the cultural memory that its story was woven into the very fabric of a civilization's identity. Dwarka stands as a powerful testament to the idea that our oldest stories are not merely fiction. They are often history disguised as legend, waiting for the right moment to reveal their truth. This bridge between epic poetry and underwater stone now carries us further east, to a submerged world that challenges the very timeline of human innovation. Yet another discovery emerged from murky waters, this one so controversial it threatened to divide the very field of underwater archaeology. In the Gulf of Khambhat off India's western coast, a survey team in 2000 and one announced a find that seemed to rewrite history. Their sonar equipment detected what they described as vast geometric patterns on the seafloor, structures resembling foundations, walls, and even channels sprawled across a staggering area. The most staggering claim, however, was their age. Based on dredged artifacts and environmental data, researchers proposed the site was an astonishing 9,500 years old. If verified, this would place a complex, organized society in India millennia before the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley, shattering the established timeline for the rise of urban life. The announcement was met not with universal celebration, but with immediate and fierce scientific debate. The core of the controversy lay in the challenging conditions. The Gulf of Khambhat is filled with silt and sediment, creating turbid waters where visibility is near zero and sonar readings can be difficult to interpret with absolute certainty. Skeptics argued that the seemingly perfect shapes on the sonar maps could be natural formations, created by ancient river channels or the powerful tidal currents that constantly reshape the seabed. They also questioned the dating of the recovered artifacts, suggesting that stone tools brought up by dredging could have been displaced from younger sites upstream and simply came to rest on an older geological layer. This was not a clash over a clear monument, but a fundamental disagreement over how to read ambiguous evidence in an incredibly difficult environment. The Gulf of Khambhat debate highlights a critical tension in the search for lost civilizations, the electrifying thrill of a potential paradigm-shifting discovery versus the rigorous, often slow, process of peer-reviewed verification. It serves as a crucial reminder that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the path to rewriting history is paved with both wonder and healthy skepticism. This disciplined approach ultimately leads us to a site where the evidence is far less ambiguous, and the implications for human history are just as profound. Far out in the deep waters off Cuba, a discovery was made that defies easy explanation. A team of explorers mapping the seafloor with advanced sonar detected something impossible: a series of massive, symmetrical structures resting at a depth of over 2,000 feet. Their forms were startlingly geometric, resembling great pyramids or sprawling platforms, all sitting in the profound darkness of the abyss. The immediate implication of this depth is what separates this enigma from all others. For these structures to have ever been on dry land, for human hands to have possibly built them, they would have had to exist during the last ice age, when global sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. This places their construction not just in a distant past, but in a past that conventional archaeology does not recognize as a time for complex builders. It pushes the potential timeline back over 12,000 years, to an era we are told was populated only by small, nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers. The site near Cuba remains one of the great unresolved mysteries simply because it is almost unreachable. The extreme depth places it far beyond the reach of ordinary divers, requiring specialized, costly submersibles for any direct investigation. The high costs and logistical nightmares have, so far, prevented a full-scale archaeological expedition. We are left with tantalizing sonar images and a profound question hanging in the water. Are we looking at the sunken remnants of a forgotten chapter in human history, a civilization capable of monumental architecture at a time when none should have existed? Or is this a spectacular illusion, a rare and perfect trick of geology where natural rock formations have fractured into seemingly artificial shapes? Without physical proof from the site itself, the Cuban deep water structures exist in a state of pure potential. They represent the ultimate frontier in this search, a reminder that our planet's most profound secrets may not be in the shallow waters we can easily explore, but in the crushing darkness of the deep, waiting for the day our technology and our courage can finally catch up to our curiosity. The deep ocean is not the only place where the waters guard their secrets. In the cold, dark depths of the Baltic Sea, a team of explorers in 2011 found something that defied all expectation. While scanning the seafloor for a historic shipwreck, their sonar painted a bizarre and impossible image. Resting on the seabed was a massive, circular object, nearly 200 feet across, with a strange, tail-like formation trailing behind it. Its sharp, geometric lines and uncanny resemblance to a certain fictional starship instantly captured the world's attention. The Baltic Sea Anomaly was born, and with it, a firestorm of theories. Was this the ultimate proof of ancient, non-human visitors, a crashed UFO preserved in the icy depths, or perhaps a secret, sunken Nazi anti-submarine device from World War II? The initial sonar image was so clean, so perfectly artificial, that it seemed to mock any attempt at a simple explanation. The mystery only deepened when divers finally reached the object. They found its surface was not smooth metal, but a rough, rock-like material covered in soot and what appeared to be small, unexplained fireplaces. Even more perplexing, their electrical equipment would reportedly malfunction the closer they got to the structure, as if it was emitting some kind of interference. This was not the clean, manufactured craft of science fiction, but a far more enigmatic and confusing reality. While most geologists propose it is an unusually symmetrical glacial deposit, a rare formation left behind by a retreating Ice Age glacier, the sheer perfection of its shape continues to baffle experts. The true legacy of the Baltic Sea Anomaly may not be a definitive answer, but the powerful question it represents. It demonstrates how a single, unexplained image can ignite a global conversation, fueling our collective desire for mysteries that challenge the conventional story. It sits at the crossroads of science and speculation, a reminder that we are often most captivated by the things we cannot easily classify. This human drive to find patterns and meaning in the unknown now leads us to a final, overarching question that connects all these sunken enigmas. The story of Alexandria's descent into the sea is not a legend whispered across millennia, but a historical reality written in stone and water. While we search for mythical empires, here we have a metropolis whose glory and collapse are recorded in ancient texts, a city that did not vanish in a single day, but slipped beneath the waves over centuries, victim to a shifting landscape and relentless seismic shocks. The Mediterranean did not swallow Alexandria whole. Instead, it patiently claimed its royal heart, the island sector where the Ptolemaic dynasty built their magnificent palaces, their grand temples, and the towering lighthouse of pharaohs, a wonder of the ancient world. For nearly 2,000 years, this district lay hidden under layers of sand and sediment, a lost world preserved just offshore from the modern, bustling city. Then, marine archaeologists began to piece the puzzle together. Mapping the sunken foundations, they revealed a ghostly echo of unparalleled splendor. They found colossal statues of pharaohs and gods toppled on the seafloor, the remnants of a royal pier where Cleopatra herself may have walked, and the scattered stone blocks of the legendary lighthouse, its fallen pieces creating an artificial reef. This is not a site of speculation, it is a direct, tangible link to a documented past. The underwater ruins provide a sobering lesson in the fragility of human achievement. Alexandria was a center of global knowledge and power, home to the greatest library of the ancient world, a beacon of civilization. Yet, the same natural forces that shaped our planet proved indifferent to its grandeur. Earthquakes and land subsidence relentlessly pulled its most iconic structures into the sea, a slow-motion tragedy that demonstrates how even the most powerful empires are subject to the Earth's immense power. The rediscovery of this sunken quarter does more than just confirm historical accounts. It breathes life into them. To see a sphinx resting on the seabed, or to trace the outline of a Ptolemaic palace, is to bridge a gap of 2,000 years in an instant. It reminds us that not all underwater cities belong to the realm of myth. Some are the real, poignant graves of great civilizations, offering us a clear window into a lost age and a humbling connection to the enduring power of the natural world. These submerged landscapes present a different kind of mystery altogether. Before stone cities could be lost to the waves, the very ground they stood upon had to vanish. Stretching across what is now the turbulent North Sea, there once existed a vast and fertile plain known as Doggerland. For thousands of years, this was not seabed but a heartland, a bridge connecting the British Peninsula to the European continent. It was a landscape of rolling hills, dense forests, meandering rivers, and marshlands, teeming with animal life and home to populations of Mesolithic hunter-gatherers. This was their world, a complete and thriving ecosystem. Then the climate shifted at the end of the last ice age. Glaciers melted and sea levels began their relentless, inexorable rise. The encroaching waters did not arrive in a single catastrophic event, but as a slow, creeping inevitability. Generations of people would have watched their familiar hunting grounds shrink, their forests become salt marshes, and their rivers swell and flood. It was a slow-motion displacement that ultimately erased an entire continent from the map, submerging it beneath the cold waves. The loss of Doggerland was not the dramatic collapse of a single city, but the quiet, geological scale drowning of a world. The evidence for this lost land is not found in grand stone structures, but in the intimate debris of daily life. Fishermen's nets, trawling the seabed far from any modern shore, have for decades hauled up astonishing clues. They have recovered the finely worked flint tools of those ancient hunters, the bones of mammoths and other great beasts they pursued, and even the stony seeds of long-extinct plants. Most hauntingly, researchers have identified the preserved impressions of human footprints on the submerged silt, moments of passage frozen in time. These are not the monuments of kings, but the echoes of individuals walking across a landscape that now lies under 130 feet of water. The story of Doggerland fundamentally rewrites our understanding of human prehistory, not by revealing a forgotten technology, but by revealing a forgotten geography. It shows us that the continents we know are not fixed, and that some of the most important chapters of the human journey were written on lands that are now completely invisible. This concept connects every coastline on Earth. All around the globe, the rising seas at the end of the Ice Age consumed millions of square miles of continental shelf, land that was once the most attractive real estate for our early ancestors, rich with freshwater and game. The true cradle of civilization may not lie in the river valleys we know today, but on fertile plains that have been hidden beneath the ocean for millennia. Doggerland forces us to ask what else was lost with that land, and how many other stories are waiting, not as stone ruins, but as invisible landscapes buried under the sand and the sea. The mystery of the cart Ruts on Malta is a puzzle written in stone that leads directly into the sea. Across the island's limestone plateaus, you can find a sprawling network of parallel grooves, carved deep into the rock as if by the wheels of countless heavy carts. For generations, researchers have debated their true purpose. Were they ancient roads, irrigation channels, or part of some long-forgotten industrial process? The answer remains elusive, but the most compelling clue is not found on land. These very same tracks, with their distinctive parallel lines, continue their path across the rocky shoreline and vanish beneath the Mediterranean waves descending into the deep. This single, observable fact changes everything. For these ruts to be submerged today, they had to have been created when the land extended much further out, when sea levels were dramatically lower. Geological data points to a time over 6,000 years ago. This date is the heart of the enigma. It suggests that this complex system was being used and likely created by a society that existed centuries before the great megalithic temples like Gantaja were even built. The established timeline credits the temple-building culture with incredible architectural feats, but the cart ruts imply an even older, more widespread, and perhaps more industrious society. Who were these people, and what were they moving with such relentless traffic that it left permanent scars on the landscape? The submerged ruts are not just an archaeological curiosity, they are a direct physical challenge to our historical narrative. They indicate a level of organization, land use, and possibly trade that we have not yet fully credited to the ancient peoples of this region. This silent highway on the seabed forces us to reconsider the scale and sophistication of prehistoric Malta, suggesting a lost chapter of development that is now completely underwater. The cold, dark waters of the Gulf of Maine hold a secret written in stone. Scattered across the seabed are mysterious piles of rock, some rising several feet high, arranged in lines and circles that seem to defy the random chaos of nature. To the trained eye, these formations bear a striking resemblance to ancient cairns, the man-made stone markers built by cultures across the globe for ceremonial purposes, as burial sites, or to signify trails. The immediate question is as profound as the deep they lie in. Are these simply the result of glacial activity, where retreating ice sheets dumped their burdens of rock, or are we looking at the deliberate work of human hands from a time when this was not seafloor, but dry, inhabitable land? The implications of a human origin are staggering. Geological data suggests that the area was exposed land until sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age, roughly 11,000 years ago. If these are indeed cairns, they would point to a human presence in the Americas far older and potentially more sophisticated than traditionally thought. Could they be the work of ancient Native American cultures whose coastal settlements are now completely submerged, leaving these stone piles as their only testament? Or do they hint at even more controversial possibilities, like pre-Columbian voyages across the Atlantic by maritime cultures from Europe, who left these markers on a shoreline that has long since vanished? The debate is a perfect storm of archaeology and geology. Skeptics point to the powerful forces of glaciers and fishing trawlers that can move and stack stones in deceptively orderly ways. Proponents, however, see patterns that feel intentionally designed, a silent language from a lost world. This enigma forces us to confront a fundamental truth. The entire continental shelf of the Americas was once a vast, fertile coastline, the most likely place for early human settlement. As the seas rose, this entire chapter of human history was systematically erased, submerged under hundreds of feet of water. The cairns of the Gulf of Maine, whether natural or artificial, stand as a powerful symbol of that profound loss. They are a haunting reminder that the first footsteps in the New World may have been taken on lands that now lie at the bottom of the sea, and that the true story of the peopling of the Americas is a puzzle still missing its most foundational pieces. The powerful tsunami that struck the Indian Ocean in 2004 brought more than just destruction. As the colossal waves receded from the coast of Mahabalipuram, they pulled back a curtain of sand and water, revealing a secret the sea had guarded for centuries. There, scattered across the seabed, were the undeniable remains of man-made structures, massive stone blocks, and the foundations of fallen walls. For the local community, this was not a surprise but a confirmation. Their oral traditions had always spoken of 7 magnificent pagodas, 6 of which were claimed by the ocean in a legendary flood. The modern disaster had, in a tragic twist, unveiled the physical proof of an ancient one. This discovery does something remarkable. It elevates local folklore from mere story to a potential historical record. The legends were not just myths, they were a form of memory, a narrative map passed down through countless generations that pointed directly to a lost truth. It demonstrates that a community's shared stories can be as valuable a tool for an archaeologist as a satellite image or a sonar scan. The submerged structures of Mahabalipuram are not from a mythical, impossibly ancient time, but from a documented historical period, the 7th and 8th centuries of the Common Era. This forces us to recalibrate our sense of time and loss. It shows that the submergence of significant cities and temples is not an event confined to a shadowy, prehistoric past. Even well-recorded historical eras can have entire chapters that slipped beneath the waves, their grandeur remembered only in song and stone. The line between a local legend and a historical account is often just a matter of waiting for the ocean to reveal its evidence. High in the thin air of the Andes, the deep blue waters of Lake Titicaca hold a mystery far from any ocean shore. Here, at an altitude of over 12,000 feet, divers exploring the lakebed have not found scattered stones, but the distinct outlines of a submerged world. A long, ancient wall snakes across the bottom, while the foundations of temples and the clear lines of agricultural terraces rise from the silt. These are the remains of the Tiwanaku culture, a powerful and sophisticated society that thrived more than 1,000 years before the Inca Empire rose to power. The presence of these structures underwater is not the result of a single cataclysm, but a testament to the slow, powerful rhythm of environmental change. Lake Titicaca is not a static body of water. Its level has risen and fallen dramatically over the centuries, influenced by long-term climate patterns. A community that once lived on the lakeshore, building its sacred sites and farmlands, would have gradually watched the water creep higher, eventually claiming their structures and preserving them in the cold, fresh water. This makes the site a unique time capsule. Unlike salt water, which erodes stone, the lake's fresh water has acted as a remarkable preservative, protecting the ruins from the harsh elements of the high plains and giving archaeologists an incredibly clear window into Tiwanaku engineering and daily life. The discovery fundamentally shifts our idea of what an underwater city can be. It proves that these lost worlds are not confined to the deep sea, but can exist in the most unexpected places, even atop the roof of the world. They are a universal feature of human history, appearing wherever water and earth have engaged in their slow dance, and wherever resilient cultures have built their legacies only to see them reclaimed by nature. This inland mystery demonstrates human adaptation on a grand scale, showing how a civilization not only survived in a challenging environment, but flourished, leaving behind monuments that continue to speak to us from beneath the waves. While the Great Pyramids and legendary cities capture our imagination, sometimes the most profound truths are found in the quietest places. The clear, deep waters of Lake Geneva hold a different kind of treasure, one that tells the story not of kings but of families. Resting on the lakebed are the remains of Neolithic villages built on stilts, intricate communities known as palafittes that thrived over 6,000 years ago. These are not the ruins of a forgotten empire, but the preserved footprints of daily life from a time when Europe was a vast, untamed wilderness. The stilt houses themselves have long since collapsed, but their wooden foundations remain, outlining entire neighborhoods that once stood above the water. Because these sites were submerged and sealed in a waterlogged, oxygen-poor environment, they became time capsules of extraordinary preservation. On dry land, wood rots, cloth disintegrates, and food remains turn to dust within centuries. But here, the lake protected these fragile materials for millennia. Archaeologists have recovered wooden bowls still bearing the marks of the tools that carved them, delicate textiles woven from plant fibers, and even the actual remains of the meals these people ate, from fish bones to stored grains. This level of detail is almost unheard of for such a distant era. It allows us to move beyond speculation and truly understand their world. We can see their sophisticated tool-making techniques, their dietary habits that shifted with the seasons, and their complex trade networks that brought materials from distant regions. These villages do not rewrite our timeline with claims of impossible technology, but with something far more intimate, a portrait of a society with a deep and sophisticated understanding of its environment. They chose to build on the water for a reason, likely for defense, access to fishing, and transportation. This was not a primitive struggle for survival, but a deliberate, clever adaptation to their world. The legacy of these stilt house communities is a humbling reminder that civilization is built not just on grand monuments, but on the quiet, cumulative knowledge of how to live in a place, a wisdom that these ancient people possessed in abundance. The city of Heracleion was a ghost in the historical record, a place mentioned by ancient historians as the mandatory port of entry for all trade coming into Egypt. They wrote of a grand, wealthy city, a place of immense temples and bustling harbors where the Nile met the Mediterranean, and then it was simply gone, leaving behind only stories that sounded too grand to be true. For over 1,000 years, it was considered little more than a myth, a legendary counterpart to Atlantis. Then, in the year 2000, after years of systematic searching, French marine archaeologist Frank Gaudiot and his team made a discovery that would silence the skeptics forever. They found it not as a few scattered stones, but as an entire cityscape lying in the murky depths of Abu Qir Bay, preserved under a protective blanket of sand and clay. The team began to bring the legend to the surface, piece by astonishing piece. They recovered a 16-foot-tall statue of a Ptolemaic queen carved from red granite, her features still regal and sharp. Nearby lay a colossal statue of the god Hapi, the deity of the Nile's annual flood, a symbol of abundance that now rested in the silent deep. They found the remains of more than 60 ancient ships, a whole fleet entombed in the harbor mud, suggesting a sudden and catastrophic end. Inscriptions on massive stone slabs, known as steles, confirmed the city's identity and its role in administering trade and taxes. They even brought up delicate gold jewelry and coins, personal treasures lost in the final chaos. The sheer density of finds was overwhelming. This was not a slow abandonment, it was a city frozen in a moment of disaster, likely a massive earthquake that liquefied the clay soil, causing the entire area to collapse and be swallowed by the sea. The rediscovery of Heracleion stands as one of the greatest achievements in underwater archaeology. It is a powerful, tangible lesson that the line between myth and history is often just a matter of depth. A story that was passed down for generations, once dismissed as pure fantasy, was waiting all along on the seafloor, complete with its statues, its ships, and its name. This forces us to look at all the other legendary places spoken of in ancient texts with new and wondering eyes. If Heracleion was real, what other fabulous cities are still waiting, hidden beneath the waves, for their story to be told once more? Deep within the jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula, the earth opens up into crystal-clear pools known as cenotes. For the ancient Maya, these were not just sources of water, but sacred openings to Xibalba, the watery underworld, a realm of gods and ancestors. It was here, at this threshold between our world and the next, that they conducted some of their most profound rituals, offering precious objects to the depths. Over centuries, as sea levels rose, these cave systems flooded, sealing away their secrets in pristine, dark water. Modern archaeologists, equipped with diving gear and powerful lights, have become the first visitors to these submerged shrines in over 1,000 years. They do not find crumbling ruins, but perfectly preserved moments of devotion. Intricate pottery vessels sit exactly where they were placed, their painted designs still vibrant. Delicate jewelry of jade and shell rests on ledges, and the remains of ceremonial fires are found deep inside caves, far from any natural light. These were not casual discards, but deliberate gifts to powerful, unseen forces. The water itself was the key to this incredible preservation. The stable, cool, and dark environment of the flooded caves protected these organic and ceramic materials from the decay that would have quickly destroyed them in the jungle above. This has created a time capsule of spiritual life, offering a direct window into the Maya worldview. We can see how they perceived the cosmos, not as a distant sky, but as a layered universe with this watery underworld as a fundamental part of the cycle of life and death. Each artifact recovered from the silty floor is a sentence in a long-lost prayer, helping us to understand that their relationship with water was not one of fear, but of deep, sacred reverence. These silent, flooded caves guard the most intimate thoughts of a civilization, allowing us to finally listen. This possibility hinges on a single, dramatic geological event. The Black Sea deluge theory suggests that thousands of years ago, what we now call the Black Sea was a much smaller, landlocked freshwater lake surrounded by fertile shores. Then, as the last ice age waned and global sea levels rose, the Mediterranean Sea pushed against a natural land bridge, the Bosporus Sill. The theory argues that this barrier did not slowly erode but catastrophically gave way. A titanic volume of salt water would have thundered into the basin below, a waterfall of unimaginable scale that could have raised sea levels by as much as 6 inches per day. For any communities living along that ancient shoreline, this would not have been a slow, creeping tide. It would have been a relentless, terrifying wall of water, permanently reclaiming thousands of square miles of inhabited land in a matter of months or even weeks. This single event would have erased an entire prehistoric landscape, a world that had been home to some of the earliest farming communities in the region. But in this act of destruction, the sea may have also created the perfect preservation chamber. The influx of dense, salty water settled to the bottom of the new sea, creating a deep, cold, anoxic layer, completely devoid of oxygen. In this environment, the normal processes of decay simply stop. Wood, rope, animal hides, and even the structural remains of buildings would not rot away. They would simply lie there, untouched by time, waiting. This is what makes the Black Sea so tantalizing. It is not just a search for stone foundations, but for a complete snapshot of a Neolithic world, a moment frozen at the very instant it was lost. Finding a settlement in these deep, dark waters would be like opening a time capsule sealed over 7,000 years ago. We could learn not just how they built their homes, but what tools they used, what crops they stored, and how they organized their villages on the eve of a disaster that would become the stuff of legend. Such a discovery would do more than add a new site to the map. It would fundamentally reshape the story of how agriculture and technology spread from the Near East into Europe. Were these submerged plains the true highway for that cultural revolution? The silent, oxygen-free depths of the Black Sea may hold the answer, preserving a lost chapter of human innovation on the seafloor. These silent ruins share a single global cause. The world we know is a world of lowered seas, a brief snapshot in a much longer story of planetary change. For tens of thousands of years, massive ice sheets, some over a mile thick, locked away an enormous volume of the Earth's water. This was the last great ice age, and its end unleashed a transformation of our coastlines that is almost impossible to grasp. As the climate warmed, these colossal ice sheets began to melt, returning their stored water to the world's oceans. The result was a staggering rise in global sea levels, a surge of nearly 400 feet that unfolded over centuries. Try to picture a world map, but one where the shorelines are not where you see them today. Vast stretches of what is now continental shelf were once dry, habitable land. We are not talking about small strips of coastline, but an area of over 10 million square miles, a combined landmass larger than the entire continent of North America that was gradually claimed by the rising tides. This was not always a gentle, inch-by-inch process. Scientific evidence from ice cores and sediment layers reveals that this rise was punctuated by periods of dramatic and rapid flooding. At certain points, immense glacial lakes trapped behind walls of ice would catastrophically burst, releasing volumes of freshwater equivalent to all the Great Lakes combined in a matter of months. For the human communities living along those ancient coasts, this would have been an existential threat of unimaginable scale. A village that had been safe for generations could find the ocean's edge advancing at a visible pace, swallowing hunting grounds, freshwater sources, and sacred sites within a single lifetime. The very ground beneath their feet was disappearing. This global phenomenon provides the essential context for why we find so many ancient settlements beneath the waves. They are not evidence of a single mythical cataclysm, but the scattered remnants of a slow-motion continental drowning. Every underwater city, from the stone structures of the Mediterranean to the lost villages of the North Sea plains, is a testament to this shared planetary experience. This understanding also casts our own modern era in a sobering new light. The geological forces that reshaped our world and submerged these ancient landscapes are not locked in the distant past. As our climate changes once more, the ocean's relentless advance continues, reminding us that the relationship between humanity and the sea is one of the most fundamental and enduring stories of our existence. These silent worlds would remain forever hidden without the advanced tools that act as our underwater eyes and hands. Uncovering a lost city begins not with a dive but with sound. Vessels tow sophisticated sonar arrays that emit precise acoustic pulses, mapping the seafloor by listening to the echoes that return. Side-scan sonar creates a stark, almost photographic image of the bottom, revealing the shape of unnatural mounds or the straight lines of a collapsed wall. Multi-beam echosounders take this further, firing hundreds of sound beams in a fan-like swath to build a detailed, three-dimensional topographical map of the seabed. It is this technology that first flags the anomalies, the shapes in the data that whisper of something human made resting in the abyss. But a sonar shadow is just a ghost, a suggestion. To confirm a discovery, you need to see it. This is where robotic explorers take over. Remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are tethered. Unmanned submarines bristling with high-definition cameras, powerful lights, and sometimes robotic arms. Controlled by pilots on a surface ship, they can spend countless hours in the crushing depths, hovering over a site and sending back a crystal-clear live video feed. They are the workhorses of deep-water archaeology, allowing scientists to visually inspect a potential ruin, gently clear away sediment, and recover small artifacts without a single human ever descending to that dangerous environment. For the most challenging and profound missions, we turn to manned submersibles. These are the spacecraft of the deep sea, pressure-resistant spheres that carry a small crew of pilots and scientists directly to the site. There is no substitute for the human eye and the intuitive understanding a trained archaeologist can gain from being physically present, even if that presence is inside a thick titanium hull. The discoveries at Heracleion and the tantalizing sonar images from Cuba are direct results of this technological evolution. Each new generation of equipment pushes the frontier of exploration a little deeper and a little clearer. What was once the stuff of adventure novels is now a standard archaeological toolkit, transforming the vast, dark ocean into a new frontier for historical discovery, a place where every expedition holds the potential to rewrite a chapter of our shared human story. The thrill of discovery is only the beginning of a much longer, more demanding story. Uncovering a sunken structure on a sonar screen is one thing, but bringing its history to the surface is a monumental task set against one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Underwater archaeologists are not simply historians with scuba gear. They are technical specialists battling the ocean itself. Every dive is a race against a ticking clock, governed by the strict limits of decompression schedules to avoid the debilitating risks that come with ascending from the depth. They often work in near-zero visibility, their world reduced to the small circle of light from a headlamp, fighting against currents that can sweep away vital clues in an instant. And in the abyssal zone, the crushing pressure creates a realm where human presence is measured in expensive, carefully orchestrated minutes inside a submersible. The excavation process itself is a lesson in patience and precision. A single artifact cannot simply be plucked from the seabed. Its exact position, its orientation, and its relationship to every other object around it is a piece of data that is utterly irreplaceable. On land, an archaeologist can step back and see the entire dig site, but underwater, the slightest movement of a fin can erase this context forever, turning a priceless historical clue into a meaningless trinket. To combat this, teams use tools like underwater dredges, which act like gentle vacuum cleaners, carefully suctioning away layers of sediment to reveal the site without disturbing its fragile arrangement. The most revolutionary tool, however, is digital. Through a technique called photogrammetry, archaeologists take thousands of overlapping photographs of a site from every possible angle. Powerful software then stitches these images together to create a perfect, photorealistic three-dimensional model of the ruins. This digital twin allows researchers to virtually fly through the streets of a sunken city long after the dive is over, taking measurements and studying details that would be impossible to see from the murky seafloor. This painstaking, costly work is not about treasure hunting. It is about responsible preservation. The ultimate goal is to extract the maximum amount of information while leaving the site as undisturbed as possible for future generations of scientists with even better technology. It is a race not just against the elements, but against time itself, ensuring that these fragile windows into our past are not lost before their stories can be fully understood. This friction between established science and revolutionary ideas is the crucible where our understanding of the past is forged. When a discovery like a sunken city emerges, it must pass through a rigorous gauntlet of scrutiny before it is accepted into the official record of human history. Mainstream archaeology moves with deliberate caution and for good reason. Its foundation is the peer review process, a system where any new claim is dissected and evaluated by independent experts who are not involved in the original research. This is not about gatekeeping or suppressing truth, but about ensuring that the evidence is solid, the methods are sound, and the conclusions are the most logical ones that can be drawn. The goal is to build a historical narrative that is as reliable and fact-based as possible, protecting it from errors, hoaxes, and well-intentioned but mistaken interpretations. The burden of proof always rests on the new claim. For a discovery that purports to rewrite our entire timeline, the evidence required is extraordinarily high. A single, ambiguous sonar image or a handful of recovered artifacts is rarely enough to overturn decades or even centuries of accumulated data from thousands of other sites. This careful, methodical approach can seem frustratingly slow from the outside, especially when we are captivated by the possibility of a lost world. Yet this very skepticism has protected the field from countless dead ends, ensuring that the stories we eventually tell are built on a foundation of verified fact, not just compelling speculation. On the other side of this divide, alternative theories often emerge from a place of passionate curiosity and a legitimate desire to explore the gaps in our knowledge. They ask the big, exciting questions that challenge the status quo. However, this space is also vulnerable to a powerful psychological trap known as confirmation bias, the human tendency to favor information that supports what we already want to believe. An enthusiast who is convinced a particular site is Atlantis might focus only on the geological features that look artificial, while dismissing the natural explanations for those same features. This is not a flaw unique to outsiders. It is a universal human tendency that professional researchers must also constantly guard against in their own work. The true path forward lies not in one side defeating the other, but in finding a productive balance. We need the disciplined, evidence-based framework of mainstream science to anchor our search in reality. But we also need the open-minded wonder and the big-picture thinking of alternative inquiry to remind us that our current understanding is incomplete. The most credible discoveries, like the meticulously documented ruins of Heracleion, eventually bridge this gap. They earn recognition not by shouting the loudest, but by presenting a body of evidence so clear, so repeatable, and so compelling that the entire scientific community cannot help but take notice. This delicate dance between skepticism and belief is what pushes the entire field forward, ensuring that the next great discovery beneath the waves will be both wondrous and real. A single verified discovery from the last ice age would not merely add a new branch to our family tree, it would set the entire tree on fire. The official story of civilization tells a linear tale, a slow climb from simple hunter-gatherer bands to settled farming villages, and finally to the first cities and empires. This progression is the bedrock of our history books. But what if that bedrock is built upon the sunken ruins of an even older foundation? If a site like the Yonaguni monument was conclusively shown to be the work of human hands from over 10,000 years ago, it would force a radical question. What does complex society actually look like, and how many times has it risen and fallen? We would have to confront the possibility of a cycle, a pattern where cultures achieve a level of sophistication capable of monumental architecture, only to have that knowledge erased by a planetary event like rising sea levels. This is not about finding a single lost city, but about discovering a lost epoch. The implications ripple outward, touching every aspect of our understanding. Could the mastery of seafaring required to build on such a scale hint at global exploration in deep prehistory? Might the myths of great floods that permeate cultures from the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah be more than just archetypal stories, but the faint, collective memory of a real, global cataclysm that reshaped the world and reset the human story? This thought experiment challenges the very idea of progress as a straight line. It suggests that human history is not a simple ascent, but a story with missing volumes, entire libraries of knowledge and experience that were submerged, leaving behind only the most durable stone clues and the haunting echoes in our oldest legends. The true enigma is not the potential existence of these places, but what their existence says about the fragility of our own legacy and the enduring human spirit to rebuild from the ruins time and time again. The same ocean that protects these ancient sites also leaves them dangerously exposed. Unlike a protected ruin on land, a sunken city resting on the continental shelf faces a gauntlet of modern threats. Deep-sea fishing trawlers with their heavy nets dragged across the seabed can scrape away centuries of sediment and shatter fragile walls in a single pass. Industrial activities like pipeline laying and offshore drilling pose a direct risk to entire submerged landscapes, while looters armed with advanced technology can strip a site of its priceless artifacts before archaeologists even know it exists. These places are utterly unique, each one a time capsule that, once broken open, can never be resealed. Their value is not in gold or treasure, but in the irreplaceable information they hold about our shared human journey. Recognizing this fragility, the global community took a significant step with the UNESCO 2001 Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. This international agreement establishes a vital ethical and legal framework, urging nations to preserve these sites in their original location, a principle known as in situ preservation, and to prioritize knowledge over financial gain. It champions non-destructive survey techniques and public education, fostering a sense of shared stewardship, but a law on paper is not enough. The real protection for these silent chapters of history comes from a collective sense of responsibility. It falls to governments to enforce these protections, to corporations to operate with awareness and care, and to each of us as global citizens to value preservation over plunder. When we choose to support responsible research and advocate for these underwater museums, we are not just safeguarding stones, we are ensuring that future generations will have the same opportunity we have today, to be humbled and inspired by a piece of the past that the sea so generously saved for us. The silent cities beneath the waves are no longer just waiting for us to stumble upon them. We are now building the very eyes and hands that will seek them out with purpose. The next great frontier in this search lies with autonomous underwater vehicles, or a UVS. Imagine a fleet of robotic explorers, not tethered to a ship by a cable, but swimming freely through the abyss for months at a time. These machines use sophisticated sensors and onboard intelligence to navigate the most treacherous underwater terrain, mapping vast areas of the seafloor with a level of detail we once thought impossible. They can work tirelessly in the crushing darkness, sending back data that will guide us directly to the most promising anomalies. This technological leap is paired with another, more subtle revolution happening in the laboratory. Scientists are now using advanced genetic analysis on sediment cores pulled from the seabed. Within a single sample of mud, they can detect the faintest biological traces of past human activity, the ancient DNA of plants that were cultivated or the microbes that thrive where people once lived. It is like learning to read the ocean's memory at a molecular level, and then there is the power of artificial intelligence. The challenge is no longer a lack of sonar data, but an overwhelming surplus of it. AI algorithms can be trained to scan these immense digital landscapes, recognizing the subtle geometric signatures of human-made structures that a human eye might dismiss as a trick of the light or a random rock formation. This intelligent filtering turns a needle in a haystack into a highlighted waypoint on a map. These tools are converging into a single, monumental mission, the systematic mapping of the entire ocean floor. This is not a vague dream, but an international endeavor already underway. As this new map is drawn over the coming decade, it will inevitably reveal shapes and patterns we cannot yet explain, pointing us toward ruins we have not yet named. We stand at the threshold of the most productive era in marine archaeology, an age where the legends of the deep may finally be brought into the light, not by chance but by design. The scattered ruins we find beneath the waves are not random anomalies. If you trace their locations on a map, a startling pattern emerges, a ghostly outline of the world as it once was. These sunken cities and structures are almost exclusively located on the edges of continents, along the now submerged plains known as the continental shelves. During the last ice age, this was not seabed but dry, fertile land, the very coastline where early human communities would have naturally settled. They sought out river valleys, protected bays, and abundant marine resources, establishing their homes in the most hospitable environments available. This global distribution tells a unified story, not of isolated disasters, but of a shared planetary event. The end of the Ice Age and the resulting rise in sea levels was a universal experience that reshaped every coastline on Earth. It did not target one legendary empire, but every single society that had built its life at the water's edge. This shift in perspective is everything. We are no longer looking at a collection of disconnected mysteries, but at the individual pieces of a single planet-wide puzzle. Each underwater site, from the villages of Doggerland to the walls of Dwarka, represents a different community's response to the same inexorable change. Some were lost to sudden, catastrophic floods, their stories ending abruptly. Others were abandoned gradually, as generations watched the sea claim their fields and sacred sites foot by foot over centuries. This global event becomes the great connective thread, linking the cultural memory of a great flood found in countless mythologies to a tangible, geological reality. By seeing these sites as part of a whole, we begin to understand a profound truth about human history. Our ancestors were not just passive victims of a changing climate, they were resilient survivors of a lost world. Their legacy, now resting on the seafloor, is a testament to adaptation and the enduring human spirit in the face of a transformed planet. From the pillars of Heracleion to the terraces of Yonaguni, these underwater cities are far more than just ruins. They are challengers of dogma, inviting us to question the foundational story we tell ourselves about who we are and where we come from. Every time a sonar map reveals a new geometric shape on the seafloor, or a diver's light illuminates a carved stone in the abyss, we are faced with a profound choice. Do we dismiss it as an anomaly, or do we allow it to reshape our understanding of human potential? These silent stones remind us that history is not a static record locked away in a library. It is a dynamic, living narrative, a conversation between the past and the present that is constantly being revised with each new discovery. The oceans have been the perfect custodians for these secrets, holding them in cold, dark storage for thousands of years.